We are live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening, and welcome to the North Idaho College Board of Trustees meeting this Wednesday, the 22nd of September, 2021. We will start with the call to order, verification of quorum. Mr. Lyons, if you would please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, all of the trustees are present. There is a quorum.
Thank you, sir. We will, we have got the verification of the quorum. At this time, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is review of the minutes.
Chairman Banducci,
Yes, Trustee Barnes.
I've been trying to review all of the minutes because there's quite a few of them from past months. And as I was going through them, it seems that there might be some discrepancies in it, and I would like to have the opportunity to review some of the past recordings. So I ask for a privileged motion to table it to give at least me, maybe some others, a chance to review the past recordings to verify that some of these statements are accurate.
All right, I have a motion to table the review of the minutes.
I would second that motion.
I have, okay, I have a couple of seconds. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, the reason I seconded it, I would agree that our minutes should be accurate, and if we haven't had a chance to review them to your satisfaction, I think we should have whatever time is necessary to do that. So I would agree to do that. We probably ought to put a time limit on it, though, so they don't just drift into history.
Why don't we make a goal, if we can, we'll shoot for the next meeting.
Would you like me to amend the motion then?
Yes, please, that we would
Or restate the motion?
restate the motion.
Privileged motion to table the approval of the minutes until the next scheduled board meeting to review past recordings and ensure that all statements are accurate.
All right. Trustee Howard has seconded the motion. Any additional comments or discussion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The motion carries. Next up are constituent reports. The first one is ASNIC, and it's Annie.
Greetings, my name is Annie Wlodowska and I'm ASNIC president, and a little update what will be happening this semester.
Is your mic on?
Yes.
Pull it a little closer.
There you go.
Hope that works, yes. So we have transition letter provided from previous group, and the review of first project is
I didn't want him to surprise you there. He was coming up.
Thank you. Remodel of ASNIC suite that will encourage students to spend more time with ASNIC, provide their ideas and thoughts and comments and questions, and engage in better communication with students. And also the second project is the best academic practices resolution, which allows students also to work with the faculty and have better agreements with the faculty and students. And ASNIC Group is reviewing currently the survey that has been done in May of 2021, and current interest been expressed of outdoor seating, and next meeting, Tuesday meeting of ASNIC, will be reviewing the project that facilities provided, and we'll be talking how ASNIC can be of any help or provide also any ideas and support and sponsor potentially the outdoor seating. And we also elected 3 new senators So we have a full board now, and we also have the board meeting coming on October 26th, and it's updated. We only have one meeting per semester, which also allows students to come and review and bring questions, and the outdoor project will be presented in the board meeting, and that's about it. Thank you.
Annie, if I may ask one question?
Yes.
With the one meeting, do you guys communicate on a regular basis through email and that sort of thing to stay connected and talk about the different initiatives and projects that you have?
Yes, we have Tuesday meeting in the morning, and we meet with the group. We also communicate with students through email and social media, and the board meeting allows students to come join through Zoom and in person to ask questions and communicate.
Give us just 1 second. Does
Yes.
anybody else have any questions or comments for Annie? All right, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Next up is faculty assembly. Molly, please.
Thank you, Chair Banducci, members of the board, Mr. Lyons, and Dr. McLennan. Since we have not been able to provide constituent reports yet this academic year, I'm just going to cover a few things from our August 19th meeting as well as our September 9th meeting. In our August meeting, faculty unanimously passed a resolution of support for President McLennan. The Faculty Assembly and Staff Assembly of North Idaho College have confidence in the leadership of President Rick McLennan, support his operational authority, and appreciate his demonstrated commitment to NIC's mission, values, and goals. Dr. McLennan is a champion of educational opportunity and ambassador for entrepreneurship in North Idaho. Over the last 18 months, he has led the campus community in successfully navigating a number of challenges while maintaining our focus on educational excellence and student success. Under his leadership, NIC responded to COVID-19 with resilience and creativity as it continued to offer students safe, high-quality educational opportunities through a variety of instructional modalities. It also received an exemplary accreditation review in the spring of 2020 and responded successfully to the accreditation complaint that was initiated in spring of 2021. Faculty and staff assemblies appreciate the Board of Trustees' ongoing commitment to address the issues raised by the NWCCU regarding accreditation eligibility requirement 9 and ask that the board prioritize North Idaho College's operational stability and campus morale by renewing Dr. McLennan's contract. 3 faculty abstained from the vote, but per faculty assembly bylaws, those abstentions do not factor into the tally. So faculty assembly did pass this unanimously. Staff assembly also adapted this resolution, but I will let Sarah Martin cover that in her report. Secondly, I'd like to share with you the results of the adjunct faculty survey. They were presented by Nicole King. This addressed adjunct faculty involvement, adjunct faculty support, and gaps and barriers therein. From FY14 to FY20, adjunct faculty comprised an average of 61% of NIC's overall faculty. Major takeaways address adjunct faculty are more involved than merely teaching, and they are serving the college far beyond the classroom without compensation. They would like more representation and involvement on committees advising program design and development. Major issues highlighted include lack of compensation, benefits, and advancement opportunities. Many adjuncts work for several institutions to survive financially. They cite lack of job security, feeling undervalued and/or excluded, and unavailable resources. The college could also make efforts to recognize years of service for these important members of our faculty. Thirdly, and finally, our 5th annual diversity symposium titled Digital Divides, New Technologies, and Persistent Inequalities was an outstanding success. There were over 170 in-person and virtual attendees for the keynote speaker, Sammy Rangel. Even the overflow room was standing room only. One very important component of the symposium was the breakout session wherein students met to identify issues and propose solutions surrounding technology and access at North Idaho College. Dodie Stilkey compiled reports from these, and faculty are now eager to incorporate these solutions into our classes for our students. And a big shout out to our Diversity Council. It was a smashing success. Thank you. I'll stand for questions.
Molly, I have a question for you.
Yes,
So
sir.
you caught my attention with the technology. So what do you recall being one of the most significant technology challenges and solutions that were discussed?
There were several. One massive barrier was accessibility. When we had to go into COVID, we have a lot of students who live in dark zones that don't get Wi-Fi, they can't
Right.
get stable internet, so the college did provide hotspots for many of our students, but, you know, when you live in a valley, in the, you know, that can be difficult. So we are looking at ways to record and provide lectures and other outreach initiatives that we can incorporate into our classes. Other students don't feel safe on campus, and so we're looking at ways to provide access to classrooms via Zoom and other technological improvements that we can easily provide.
Thank you. That's
You bet.
part of my background, and I would love to learn more about that and see what we can do to help.
That would be awesome.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you.
Next is staff assembly. Sarah? Sarah, let me ask you a question. I think, are you going to read something to us also?
To
statement?
cover my report, yes.
Has it already been presented to the board? Was it given to us by email? Have we already received it?
It was not.
Okay.
Are you guys ready? Okay.
Please.
So good evening, Chair Banducci, other trustees, Dr. McLennan, colleagues, and our guests this evening. The Staff Assembly has had the opportunity to meet twice since our last report to the board in May. On August 19th, this was the first meeting for the academic year. We covered usual order of business, which included the approval of the minutes from May's meeting, new employee introductions, and shout-outs. This meeting focused on some touch points and updates since our last meeting in May. We were able to announce the implementation of the parliamentarian role, and we were able to introduce our interim parliamentarian for the current academic year, Kristen Howard. This position will be included when we seek Staff Assembly officer nominations in the late spring. Staff Assembly did discuss the topic of submitting a joint letter of support with faculty for our president, Dr. McLennan. Staff Assembly executive team met to explore further on how to best navigate this. In working with faculty, the joint statement was drafted. Staff executive team invited the staff to participate in voting on this joint resolution. Votes received reflected an overwhelming majority that were in favor of submitting this joint resolution with faculty in support of our president, Dr. McLennan. September 9th, we met as well. We covered the usual order of business again. We were able to celebrate the Sterling Silver Award winner for the month of September, and a big shout out to Colleen Ward. She is the Senior Administrative Assistant for the Physical Education, Dance, and Resort Recreation Management Division, so yeah, big shout out to her. It's well deserved, she's really an amazing person. Staff were provided information on the amazing opportunities available to support their personal and professional development. This is so incredibly important as opportunities presented to staff or as a way to show NAC how they reinvest in their employees and the talent pool that makes up this amazing team. We did invite Brian Seguin from Diversity Council as a Diversity Council Chair and Jeanette Laster, our HREI liaison. And staff executive requested their attendance to the meeting to explore and provide information on the recent Patriot Front postering and stickering around the community in prominent areas of high traffic. These areas included entrances to NIC at the Northwest Boulevard and River Avenue. Patriot Front is a white nationalist group founded in Houston, Texas, with ties to anti-Semitic and racist ideologies. Hate groups commonly target secondary and higher education institutions and recruitment. It was shared in this meeting by a fellow staff member that flyers from this group were also recently discovered on bulletin boards in the foyer of the Molstead building. Staff were provided with procedural information on how to document and report instances of postings on campus. This includes recording the location, the date, the time, along with any photo of the signage and stickers in the location found, and reporting to the school resource officer, Gus Wessel. Since staff met on September 9th, there have been additional stickerings that have been found in the following locations on campus. 2 stickers were found on the front doors of the Molstead Library, a parking sign outside of the Fort Sherman Officer Quarters building, and a light pole by Post Hall. These incidents occurred sometime after midnight on September 12th. Reports of graffiti have been taken, but no one has been identified, charged, or arrested at this point. Again, it is requested that anything found on NIC campus from this group should be shared with campus safety and security. Finally, the executive committee was able to share with staff our We See You initiative. While we recognize the current challenges, and it's important to understand and acknowledge that staff are impacted by these challenges in different ways, in different forms. It's just as vital to acknowledge and remind the staff that the work we do is important and much needed. That cannot be overshadowed. We hear you, we see you. The We See You initiative is an opportunity to recognize each other, shine light on the successes that happen every single day here on campus and throughout our community. The successes can be department achievements, individual successes, and wins. We hope to have pop-up celebrations, and we're finding other unique ways to recognize individuals, departments, faculty, and our amazing students. I look forward to sharing in future reports to the board in the community these celebrations and all the successes that we will have this coming year. We are in this together, and thank you for your time this evening, and I'm open to questions that you guys might have.
Excuse me, let me interrupt, Mr. Chairman, if you would. So from time to time, I usually give a reminder. This is, we have a big crowd, a big audience tonight, and we appreciate that everybody's here and interested in the board meeting. But this is, I want you to remember that this is the business meeting, the monthly business meeting of the College Board of Trustees. It is not a public hearing. It's not a public forum or workshop. This is the business meeting, and so as an audience, as I remind people from time to time, this is your opportunity to observe the meeting, but you're not to participate because it is the board's meeting. And so, as always, we ask that you, the audience, be respectful and demonstrate appropriate decorum as an audience watching a business meeting. So thank you. I just need to say that from time to time.
I do have a question, just for those that may not know, but we've recognized someone as winning an award, and I believe that entails a little bit as part of that recognition. Can you share that? Because I think there's a monetary also?
So no monetary, unfortunately.
I couldn't remember what comes with that.
Yeah, so this would be something that our staff executive team would identify as far as how we would celebrate. Again, with COVID, I mean, doing these pop-up celebrations might be limited. We're still fine-tuning those celebrations and what they're gonna look like. Whatever the awards and goodies are, that doesn't matter compared to just acknowledging the success and the wins that people have. So that's going to be our focus, is making sure that we give that recognition. Yeah, goodies and stuff are great to receive, but you know what? Just getting that recognition goes a long way.
Now, the sterling silver, that's a little more formalized. That was what I was referring to.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry. So there's some stuff that goes with that, isn't there?
Yes, there is. So the award winners, they do I believe they get like a $50 gift card to their choice of restaurants or whatnot. There is, I believe, a $100 monetary award with that. And then I believe for the lucky people here on main campus, you guys get your choice of a parking spot with it too. So, yeah, so there's some perks definitely that come along with the Sterling Silver. And from being a previous recipient of that, it's an honor to receive those. And so I can tell you, Colleen receiving this award, she's more than deserving of this award. She's truly an incredible person, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with the others what that entailed.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes.
I just want to add that it is a wonderful thing that we do here. It's my favorite day of the month when we do it. I get to read all the comments that peers have written on behalf of the nominee. And the $100, and I think this is really important, I want to make sure I mention this, consistently has been provided by Numerica Credit Union, who has just been a terrific supporter of North Idaho College for a long, long time. And as well as the $50
Yes,
gift card.
yep.
Thank you for mentioning Numerica's support. That's a good shout out, because they've been a good partner of the college for a long time. So that's where I was trying to head with
No,
all that.
perfect,
So we're getting it all out there.
perfect.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Any
sorry.
other, I was going to see, anybody else, comments or questions? All right, I think.
Okay, thank you guys so much, appreciate it.
All right, the next is the Senate. Jeff?
Thank you, Chair Banducci, fellow trustees, President McLennan, President's Cabinet, and Mark Lyons. The Senate recently met to discuss the first reading of Policy 5.09 and wished to release the following statement. The College Senate objects to the actions at the August 26 Board of Trustees meeting that bypassed the institution's standard practice of shared governance. Policy 2.01.04 states, quote, "The North Idaho College Board of Trustees is committed to timely and meaningful participation of the college constituent groups, including faculty, staff, and students, in the decision-making process. The board recognizes that such participation enhances the quality of college decision-making and will improve the communication between the Board of Trustees, the administration, the students, staff, and faculty. The College Senate, as principal vehicle for participatory governance, shall provide timely input on policy and procedural initiation, changes, or deletions." End quote. By ignoring this policy to amend Policy 5.09 at the board's lone discretion, it has established a harmful precedent that undermines the function of the Senate and spirit of shared governance. What's the point of having a diverse body of representatives of the NIC community if the board decides to arbitrarily and unilaterally change policies without its consultation? This move feels especially egregious due to the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities' recent investigation into board practices that could impact this institution's accreditation. In its response to the NWCU complaint, the board stated, quote, "Recognizing the value of constituent groups and the general pubic," that's your spelling error, not ours, "the board adopted the policy 2.01.05 some time ago. The policy provides in relevant part that it will be the practice of the Board of Trustees to utilize the advice of interested individuals and groups in the solution of its educational and financial concerns, although the board alone will be the final policy agent," end quote. It later continues, quote, "It is the policy of the board that the faculty and staff use their respective governance structure in bringing matters of interest before the board," end quote. The board's recent action contradicts this sentiment. No emergency existed that required the board to suspend normal practices. We respectfully request the board to lead by example and adhere to the established policies of which it oversees. Are there any questions?
Trustee Howard.
I appreciate your bringing up the whole process for 5.09, not just involving the faculty and staff in the normal process for handling policy development, but the statute also requires consultation with the Panhandle Health, and that we develop a policy to protect and insulate the health and safety of people on campus. So we've got a long way to go, quite frankly, on that policy, not just with the folks on campus, but also with regard to living up to the statute in my regard. So thank you for bringing that up again.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Wood.
thank you. Jeff, thanks for your report. I would agree with you that the development of that policy did set a dangerous precedent to overlook participatory governance. And so it is a responsibility of this board to make sure that we don't do that again. And in fact, we still need to, as Trustee Howard said, finish some work up on the last policy. I recognize completely and agree with you that it set a bad precedent, and we need to work with our constituent groups.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Next on the agenda is the President's report.
Thank you. I guess I'll start tonight by, once again, as I really do like to do, because it's well-deserved, I'd like to commend our constituent leaders for the effort, all the energy and leadership you put into representing the groups that you represent here at North Idaho College. To a person, you take these responsibilities very seriously. I have the pleasure of interacting and meeting with you on a regular basis, and I know that your constituents are very well served by the work that you do, so thank you. I'd also like to thank all of our guests here tonight. It may not, I recognize there are different points of view out there in the audience, and I think that's terrific. I like to see the public engaged and learning about and understanding more about your publicly funded institution of higher education, North Idaho College, a comprehensive community college. So it's very pleased to see you all here tonight. It's been a long road to get here this evening. There's much has transpired since last November. Much of the conflict between the Board of Trustees and me has been described in several publications, locally and nationally. The documented behavior of some trustees has called into question the college's ability to meet eligibility requirements for accreditation. In response, trustees have made specific commitments to address the board governance issues that brought about the accrediting body's concerns. The board has yet to fully fulfill those commitments. I remain ready to help you if you choose to do so. But I do want to be clear that every action I have taken with the board, every communication and professional guidance I have offered since alerting this board to the troubling behavior of the board chair in January has been purposeful and focused on the health of the college and its ability to continue fulfilling its mission. I want to assure the community and reassure faculty, staff, and students that NIC remains an outstanding public institution on all measures, as documented by the spring 2020 review of our accreditation status by peer evaluators in the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities. I also want to commend the entire college community, faculty, staff, and students for doing everything that needed and still needs to be done to navigate this pandemic. It was and remains a team effort, and I could not be more pleased or proud of the results of your collective efforts. NIC has proven its resilience time and time again during its 88-year history, and we're doing so again today. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Next is the K-TEC report.
Yes, I attended the K-TEC board meeting today, and Colby was just all alight with enthusiasm. Everything was rolling in full swing, and they had their financial report, audit report today, and everything looks healthy and vibrant. And his biggest point was that there's been a 19% increase in enrollment, an addition of 108 students this year over last year. So it's a really exciting program going on out there, and we got another little walkthrough to see the progress of some of the projects. So I'm very proud to be a part of that organization there.
Michael, I'm really pleased that you succeeded me on that board and that you're enjoying being a part of that. Would you share for everybody who may not know who Colby Mattia is real quick?
Well, he is the director, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm still new to this too. I'm still learning all the roles. Even at the board meeting, I had to write down the names, like, okay, that's with that school district and that's with that industry. So, yeah, and he's just a joy to be with, and he's just so full of enthusiasm.
Yeah, that board comprises also the 3 superintendents of the Lakeland, Coeur d'Alene, and Post Falls school districts. It's a small board. There's only 6 members of it. Michael, 2 members from the community, and the 3 superintendents.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can we ask questions?
certainly.
Thank you. Well, Michael, I'm glad you're enjoying it, and I would agree it's one of our best partnerships we have out there. You talked about the 19% increase. Do you have any idea, or do they talk about what kind of programs students are favoring?
We didn't get into that too much in this one or the last one, but what I did ask for, that I'm hoping to get some numbers on, I asked if there was a metrics on the percentage of senior graduates that actually enrolled in programs at NIC. And they will have those numbers, but they haven't gotten them down yet. But my sense was that the medical portion is a big part. I walked in at a meeting when they were having a job fair in their lobby there. And it was very fascinating and exciting to watch. And I understand if it was that one or maybe a combination of multiple programs, that these students, on average across, got 4.5 job offers upon graduation from these programs. So I thought that was pretty impressive.
Excellent, thank you.
Anything else for Michael regarding K-TEC? Michael, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
We are showing no old business. There are a couple things that could have possibly come under that, but they were moved to new business. They kind of are a combination of both. So we'll move on to new business. Tab 1, first reading action, revised employee benefits policy 3.02.17. Karen Hubbard, please.
Good evening, Chair Banducci, trustees. We're continuing our ongoing review of our college policies, which includes a number of employment-related policies this year. And the policy I'm presenting tonight for first reading is policy 3.02.17 on employee benefits, which was formerly titled fringe benefits. This policy has been reviewed by the HR team, President's Cabinet, and it's gone through 2 readings at the Senate before being approved to bring forward to you tonight. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to speak to those.
Just an observation, it went from almost a page and a half to, it looks like about 1 sentence.
It did, that's correct.
Okay, I want to make sure I was seeing that correctly.
Much of that content we've moved to the procedures, which is more consistent with the format for the rest of our policies.
And I did get both of those, the 17.1 and the 17.2, so for review. Thank you. Are there any questions for Karen on this from anybody? Trustee McKenzie.
So if it moves to the policies, then that's moved into the operating decision environment?
It's moved into procedures, and the procedures can be revised. I believe that's your question, can be revised through the Senate process. It wouldn't necessarily come back to the board.
Okay. No, end of question.
Anything else? All right, that's the first reading. We'll see this on the agenda down the road. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tab 2, action, measures for the purpose of preventing the spread of COVID-19. President McLennan.
Thank you. There are two documents that accompanied this tab. One was the letter the board received on, I believe, August 31st from Kootenai Health, and which was signed by 140 healthcare practitioners, physicians, and others. And the second bit of information was the results of a student survey we administered a few weeks ago. In a minute here, I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Burns. She's going to give you some perspective from teaching and learning faculty classroom perspective. But first, I just want to discuss some of the things that have developed related to COVID-19 in our community since the board made a decision at the special meeting on August 26th to rescind the mask requirement. And at first is the letter that you received from Kootenai Health, signed by 140 physicians and healthcare professionals. In that letter, they advised and asked the board to consider resuming and staying with measures that have been in place or that have been deemed to be useful in helping avoid the spread of the pandemic for the past 18 months. On August 31st, Governor Little activated the National Guard, directing hundreds of new medical personnel to help hospitals that were, in his words, overwhelmed with unvaccinated COVID-19 patients. On September 3rd, Kootenai County's positivity rate rose to 18.9%. It's higher today, and that was the highest in 8 months. On September 7th, the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare activated its crisis standards of care. You've been reading about that quite a bit in the paper lately. On September 8th, the results of the student survey that I mentioned included in the board packet were results. Some results were sent to the board. The full results have since been conveyed to the board. But in that, the results of the survey overwhelmingly showed dismay, statements of intent to withdraw from North Idaho College, overall general displeasure with the board action to remove the mask requirement. To be fair, there were comments that supported it as well, but the majority of the comments were counter to that. On September 9th, Kootenai County and public health officials met and developed a coordinated COVID-19 response plan that included setting up a field hospital. On September 9th, a team of 20 healthcare professionals from the Department of Defense arrived at Kootenai Health to help with COVID-19 patients. On September 9th, Kootenai Health reported a staffing shortage, adding to the strain on the hospital. Out of 3,600 employees, they report 550 job openings. On September 16th, the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare activated its crisis standards of care statewide. On September 21st, St. Mary's School District Superintendent announced that due to staff and student absences, all schools in the district would close on Wednesday, September 22nd, with a tentative reopening at the earliest of October 11th. On September 21st, Governor Little announced that the state will direct an additional $10 million to help hospitals overwhelmed with COVID-19 patients. I'm almost to the end of this. On September 21st, Kootenai Health reported 111 people hospitalized with COVID-19, 43 in the ICU. This past Saturday through this past Monday, North Idaho, and I'm including the 5 northern counties in Idaho, experienced 13 new COVID-19 deaths. With respect to the vaccination rates, Idaho remains at or near the bottom nationally. As I communicated to the board on September 1st, when you rescinded the college's mask requirement at the August 26th special meeting, you did not provide for any additional measures to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. Then again on September 9th, I wrote, quote, that through its inaction, or more precisely, through its lack of timely action, the board may be creating liability for the college. Idaho Code 33-2145 states, and this is a quote within the statute, the Board of Trustees of each community college must adopt a policy for measures and procedures to prevent the spread of contagious or infectious disease, end quote. I further wrote, my primary concern is that the board has not acted to, again, quoting from the statute, require measures at the college for the purpose of preventing the spread of contagious or infectious diseases, end quote. And that's a direct citation from Idaho Code 33-2145. I further wrote, on the contrary, it has only removed a measure, required face coverings indoors, that was intended to prevent the spread of disease, end quote. This afternoon, we had a student who was isolated in our resident hall, required a 911 call. That student was transported to the hospital with severe symptoms of COVID-19. I don't know the status of that student at this time. But it's one of great concern to me and to the college. And I think I'll stop there, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Burns. I'll come back at the end of this. But Dr. Burns, you want to talk a little bit about what our experience has been in the classroom?
Chair Banducci and members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to share just the impact that COVID basically has had on teaching and learning here at North Idaho College. I'd just like to start with providing you a few statistics, just so you kind of relate to how many students and how much activity we're dealing with as it relates to COVID. So last week, our student tracking team managed 117 students who had been out of class. 20 of these students were positive for COVID, and the rest were quarantined due to the exposure. As of yesterday, we already had 17 new cases of students testing positive, which means that we will likely surpass last week's numbers of 20 positive and 117 students related to COVID. Since July, we have had 348 students and 101 employees positive. I will add that these numbers are based on individuals self-reporting. So the actual number of people on campus with COVID is likely higher than the numbers that I have reported for you. Our goal at the beginning of the semester was to maintain the continuity of instruction for students. However, it has become almost impossible for faculty to maintain continuity of instruction when there has been such a high rate of absenteeism. Faculty are doing their best to accommodate student absences by providing extra time to make up work, rescheduling exams, and moving deadlines of coursework. This almost continuous demand to provide make-up work for students takes away from faculty's preparation time for the classes and time for regular student engagement. Classroom culture has also been impacted. As a faculty member described to me, there has been a palpable divide among the students, especially in settings where group work is required. There's an uneasiness in not knowing who it is safe to sit next to, particularly for students who choose to wear masks. When masks were required, it was a more level playing field. Even this has become a distraction to learning and an interruption in the continuity of instruction. Our goal has shifted since the beginning of the semester from maintaining continuity to maintaining an open campus. We do not want to go completely remote as we did in the spring of 2020. We fully know the impact that had to our students. We have asked faculty, when possible or necessary, to move to hybrid set delivery method. That means faculty are in the classroom teaching, and students have a choice to join the class in person or remotely. This is an attempt to reduce the number of students in the classroom. Unfortunately, we have been required or chosen for the protection of others to move a number of classes to remote delivery because of the widespread exposure that has occurred in specific classes. So for example, a student will be in a classroom with COVID, or be in the classroom, then test positive for COVID, and because of the transmission within that classroom, or the potential transmission within that classroom, we move that classroom to a quarantined experience, which means that we have to deliver that class completely in a remote environment. Students and faculty are doing their best to adapt to the frequently changing classroom environment and teaching methods, but it's not easy. I monitor daily the number of student withdrawals because I receive an email notification of each student withdrawal that occurs as a part of my role. I don't have data to present to compare this year's numbers to last year's, but I am convinced that the withdrawal rate for students who have decided to totally withdraw from college is higher this year. When I get the data, the specific numbers, I will be sure to share them with you. With that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
And let me go ahead and conclude as well, and then we'll open it up for questions. So at the very least, because of the very deep and long-term relationship we have with our healthcare partners in this community and also across the border in Washington. And the specific letter that came to the Board of Trustees requesting an action or actions by the Board of Trustees, I'm going to recommend again that the Board of Trustees respond to that letter that it received on August 31st. Second request is that the board, and again, has not provided us with tools to prevent the spread of a pandemic, but has instead taken away a well-known and well-used and proven tool. And so my request again, and I am compelled to make it, is for the board to change that decision and allow us to have a mask requirement in order to continue the continuity of operations that Dr. Burns spoke about and to make the campus overall more safe. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we ask questions?
Yeah, are there any questions, please?
Down here, Mr. Chair.
Trustee Wood.
Thank you. Lita, last fall in 2020, when we opened campus back up and we had the mask in place, did we keep data on how effective that was just in keeping us open? Because that is our goal, to stay open and of course deliver a quality education. Seemed like last year we sailed through fairly good because everybody was on the same team just trying to keep the doors open, keep students in class. And we went all the way through the fall into the spring semester. So if you have any comments on that.
Chair Banducci, Trustee Wood, we do have data. We track the data of the number of students who either were positive for COVID or who we had to quarantine because of exposure. So already in, I think it was probably a week ago, probably about Tuesday of last week, we surpassed the number that we had hit last year in terms of any given day, the number of students who had been quarantined or tested positive for COVID. So yes, we do have a tracking of all that data. I didn't bring it with me this evening, but I can tell you that I know that for a fact that we have already surpassed our highest day for last year.
And how far are we into the semester?
I believe we are in our fifth week of instruction.
Okay. Thank you.
Fifth week of instruction currently.
Thank you.
Chair Banducci.
Trustee McKenzie.
Could we, would you later just give us more data for the weeks of how many students and when they dropped?
Bring it closer to you.
Could you give us question is, would you provide us the number of students and the weeks that they dropped?
Chair Banducci, Trustee McKenzie, yes, we can provide that data for you. To be honest with you, the reason I didn't have it with me today is that I have assigned that to our research team and instructional research team, and they did not have enough time to pull it together. So as soon as I have the data, I will share it.
Excellent, thank you.
Trustee Howard.
Thank you. You know, the situation that we're faced with now with the COVID pandemic is that it surpassed the Spanish flu in terms of its impact on our culture. Number of deaths and the number of people that are been hospitalized. It's overwhelmed our hospital and our medical care system. As trustees of this organization, our job is to try and provide for the best safety that we can for people who inhabit this campus. The statute that was relied upon for the motion to remove masks, 33-2145, indicates that the Board of Trustees of each community college must adopt a policy, and listen to the words, a policy for measures and procedures to prevent the spread of contagious or infectious disease. What our obligation and our duty is to adopt a policy and procedures to prevent the spread of contagious and infectious disease. No masks is not a procedure to prevent the spread of infectious disease. The letter from Kootenai Health pleading with us to adopt a policy in order to minimize the number of people who are going to be hospitalized as a result of this pandemic. You know, this is not about us as individuals. It's about our responsibility to others. And that's our responsibility as trustees to others who occupy this campus. I look at the procedure that we adopted, and we added a sentence that said, actions taken by the administration in this regard, that is, trying to minimize communicable diseases, are therefore reviewable by the Board of Trustees. That is not a policy to prevent the spread of infectious disease. There is no guidance there for the trustees, to set a policy, no guidance on how to handle the responsibility of making this decision, of reviewing what the administration has done. No measures to prevent the spread of infectious disease. We haven't given any measures to prevent the spread of infectious disease. I came across an email that I got this week from the Idaho Supreme Court. And the Idaho Supreme Court has authorized the administrative district judges of each county with regard to risk reduction protocols for COVID. And it reads, if as reflected in the weekly publication of COVID-19 incident rates, a county's 7-day moving average incident rate of confirmed presumed cases of COVID-19 is 25 or greater per 100,000 population, the administrative district judge shall enter an administrative order defining the safety protocols that will be required in the county's courthouse. The order will, at a minimum, require all persons entering the courthouse to do court business, to wear a mask that covers the nose and mouth, and maintain 6 feet of social distance from anyone that does not live in their household. That is a policy. That is a policy with definitions to it that establishes what can be done, what shall be done, and when it shall be done. Coincidentally, they also gave the incident rates, and the 7-day moving average incident rate of confirmed or presumed cases of COVID-19 in Kootenai County for Thursday, September 16th, last week, is 58.6, more than twice the minimum allowed. We don't have a policy to address any of these protocols. In order for us as trustees, I think, to fulfill our responsibility, we have to do more than just say no. We have to come up with a viable, workable measures and procedures to prevent the spread of contagious and infectious disease. We haven't even begun as trustees to come up with a procedure to prevent the spread of contagious or infectious disease. I think that what we need to do immediately is to adopt a policy very similar, if not the same as what the Supreme Court has adopted, as a minimal movement forward to authorize our administration to move effectively to try and stem the spread of COVID. Thank you.
Okay.
Trustee Banducci
Trustee Barnes.
would like to address some of these things. These statistics are often horrifying to hear. But statistics are statistics, and we hear statistics all the time. This has been an international debate, as we all know. We see it on TV every night. We see it in social media. We talk about it with our neighbors and other gatherings. The issue isn't for me, these statistics, the issue is that I am an elected representative for this county in my zone for a taxpayer-funded organization. And I think we can and should come up with some solutions to help people deal with it. But it's clear, because of the pandemic across the world, that this infectious disease cannot be stopped. The issue here is personal responsibility and individual freedom. I will not be a part. Please. I will not lend my vote to an entity where an individual or even an elected board mandates that a medical device be applied to individuals against their will. And I think we do need to have solutions to help them find ways to deliver these learning things. And that's why I was very interested in what we can do to help with that. We've come a long way. My whole job now is completely remote. I used to have to be on site with my clients, reviewing everything. We have come up with some creative solutions that address, because I'm not going to fly. So we've come up with some creative solutions where I can do my on-site auditing totally, virtually remote. It's not ideal, but the human race has survived pandemics for millennia, right? So we need to work through this. We do need to find solutions. I do agree the board needs to help find things, but I am appalled by this wording that says we have to come up with a policy that will prevent the pandemic from spreading. I think that's just an impossible request.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
You had your bite at the apple. Just a second. See if anybody else wants to talk. Sure.
Mr. Chair.
It's a piece. Trustee Wood.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Trustee Barnes. I would say that statute that you find offensive was certainly not passed by us. It was passed by...
Say offensive, is it impossible?
Okay, it was passed by the state legislator, and so we're on the hook, regardless if we like it or not. And Trustee Howard was trying to come up with solutions, because we have not moved forward as a board to adopt a policy. I think before we leave tonight, at a minimum, we need to instruct the President's office and the administration to initiate the development of such policy. It'll come back to the board for review, but I also believe we need to expedite that policy because of the situation we're in.
I have a comment.
Trustee McKenzie.
Maybe as a starting point for next meeting, if each of the trustees could obtain the other community colleges a similar policy for consumption and thought, I think that would help us. Doesn't necessarily have to go in a board book, but maybe emailed to us to, that's the end of comment.
That would be helpful to see what the other colleges oppose it. And I'll get to a second. Anything from anybody else? Otherwise, I'm going to speak.
I do.
You've had your chance. You've already had yours. It's to me then. Everybody's spoken once.
We get one chance?
Well, no, but until everybody else has at least
Okay,
spoke.
I just want to make sure.
I mean, a couple of you guys, we could go all night here, so we got to keep it somewhat balanced. I haven't spoken
This
yet.
is an
so I'm going
important
to.
conversation.
No, it's a very important, but everybody's going to have equal time, sir.
Thank you.
You've had a lot of time, sir, you've had a lot of time, so we're going to distribute it the time here a little bit. We had talked about that at the last meeting when this policy was passed, that we would put it through the process and actually ask for it to be put through the process and to be pushed forward. So I would hope that that's actually being moved for review. Secondly, to go back and forth about the veracity of masks to prevent COVID is ridiculous. I can come up with as many studies as you can to say they're good or they're bad. I can have the data of the parents that sent their kids masks in and had them evaluated, and they said, oh my gosh, it's going to make the kids sicker than not having the masks. So pick your study. We had Oktoberfest downtown. We had the fair. There's no mask mandate at Panhandle Health District. The 3 school districts are operating, and 9 days ago, the Coeur d'Alene School District, who got the same letter from Kootenai Health addressed to their trustees, just like it was to us, voted again, 3-2 vote, and before they voted, and before Chair Brumley voted 3-2 to not have masks, she made some very good points about people are having life, they're having family, they're having church, they're out in the community. We have them for this part of the day, so we're going to put masks on them for this part, and we're going to impact their ability to learn when the majority of the day they're away from us without masks. So it's like putting your finger in the dike. So it's just, it's an interesting argument. We can go back and forth all day. Now, there's nothing being done. Oh, that's not true either. We have protocols, we have quarantine, there are procedures that are being followed at this school, and there have been. We act like we have nothing in place. But yet I'm hearing whole classes are being this way, and I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening. And again, we're mitigating, we're addressing, we're reacting, but it's impossible for us to prevent COVID. So I think the best we can do is be as nimble as we can, have as much flexibility in the delivery of the teaching methods as we can. We've tried to give students the ability to go online or in person. We've made that choice available to the instructors. We did that last year. We ramped up the online offerings. So I think those are all things that we're doing to accommodate and to help our students and our instructors as we try to manage through this process. So, and the COVID's mutating. If you just listen to Dr. Cole today, the things we're doing is we're chasing it. We're chasing it. And, you may have a different opinion of Dr. Cole. I think the man's brilliant. So look him up. He's here in Idaho, and he's pretty impressive. And he'll shoot a lot of holes through a lot of what some other people say. So, the community's doing this. Again, go downtown, drink beer at the Oktoberfest, go to the fair, go to the Nelly concert. Apparently they were packed in like this. All three of our major school districts are running. So we're being consistent with our community, and we are a community college. And as I've been reminded, we're supposed to reflect the values of our community and be in line with our community. And I believe right now we are.
I thought you were going to control it. Go ahead.
Like holding back the tide.
You got to try.
Like the law.
With all due respect, Chair Banducci, when you say pick your,
Whoa, hold on. She just,
Todd, somebody else will handle it. Let's get
I'm
back to
just
the
standing
meeting.
and looking.
Maybe we can get
I
back
haven't
to
said
the
anything.
meeting.
well, it is
let's
technically our
get
meeting.
back to the
I'm the
meeting.
board chair, and I was just observing to see what was going on.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the president speaking.
Christie, will you let him be chair?
Yeah, please.
No.
Do you always have
I
to be in
won't.
charge? Wow.
President speaking.
You know what?
You can
It was an
say.
interruption to all of us. Rick, if you would please continue.
all right, we'll start again. With all due respect, Chair Banducci, you mentioned picking your studies. I take some issue with that. We have 140 local health care professionals that we trust to provide our community with medical health. I do put some credibility in their advice. But I'll just, rather than talk about statistics, I'll talk about my experience, or the experience of North Idaho College. Last year, and I may have this wrong a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I've got this mostly correct. I'm aware of only one transmitted case of COVID-19 that occurred within the walls of North Idaho College. One. Something we did last year was working. The only thing we're not doing this year that we did last year was require face coverings. So that is empirical evidence that something we did last year is different than this year, and what we did last year works. Secondly, I find it somewhat disingenuous to reject data, and by data I'm talking about the overwhelming, we've received letters from donors who will no longer provide contributions to North Idaho College. I've received, you've received letters from families who are concerned about the safety of the students who are attending here. We've received numerous calls of concern regarding the faculty and staff safety. And yet, you, at the August 26th special meeting, you cited and relied on anecdotal stories of one or two students who said they would not attend North Idaho College if we required face coverings. You're willing to accept anecdotal stories, but you will not accept overwhelming, direct, empirical evidence of what's happening in this college community right now. I find that disingenuous. And I'll add, for the record, I find it exceedingly irresponsible. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Chair, I think there's been a lot more feedback on both sides of that argument. It's been rather balanced, but it's been interesting. Trustee Howard.
Thank you. Let me renew my concern. We talk a lot about conflicting medical advice with regard to masks. Yep, it might be out there. The preponderance of the evidence is that masks help. I'm kind of puzzled, quite frankly. You know, we go to the doctor for various ailments. You go there for a cold, you go there for something else, you go there for serious maladies, and they give you advice, and they give you medications, you ingest the medications, they give you, they have you go through different medical procedures, and you do all that, invasive procedures. No question about it, we follow the advice of the doctors. Here we have 140 plus medical care providers saying, please wear a mask. And for some reason or other, this has turned into a political question, and you don't even trust your own doctor. It is puzzling to me, quite frankly, but it's not really to the heart of the issue we have here. We have a statute, a law, that says that the trustees of a community college must adopt a policy for measures and procedures to prevent the spread of contagious or infectious disease. We have the obligation to adopt a policy to prevent the spread of infectious disease. The only thing we have done is to take away the one element, the mask, that does prove to have some effect on preventing the contagious diseases. We are, in my judgment, in violation of the statute. We do not have a policy. We're not even close to the policy. And when we put in our policy that it will be reviewable by the trustees without any guidance at all as to how the trustees are to be guided, and yet the only thing we've done is to take away the one element that has some effectiveness, that is masks. I appreciate the fact that there are a lot of personal feelings that go along with this. They've been rampant throughout our discourse over the last 2 years. But our job as trustees, again, is to look to see what can we do, whatever minimal steps can we take in order to try and adopt a policy to prevent the spread of infectious disease. We've done nothing, nothing. And I think we're in violation of the statute. I think quite frankly, I think we all stand in some personal liability. If somebody gets sick on campus and they say, hey, look, you know, there was no rule, there were all kinds of people, no masks, and they sue the college and they sue the trustees. We don't need this kind of aggravation and grief. All we need to do is adopt some kind of policy to prevent the spread of contagious or infectious diseases. That's what the statute requires of us. That's what we must do.
Chair Banducci? May I?
Trustee Barnes.
I still point out that Ken has pointed out that this is a law. Not all laws are good. This law is, if you read the words, if it is a law that we have to comply with, then I will push back against it. Some laws or statutes are wrong. To say that we have to develop a policy to prevent the spread of a disease just is, as I said before, ludicrous. I do believe that we can adopt policies to work on solutions to facilitate those who need to take personal responsibility for their health and isolate themselves and provide solutions to them in whatever situation they want to be. Again, my position is that we are not dictators. We do not mandate that people apply something to their body against their will. We can find other solutions.
Mr. Chair?
Trustee Wood.
Thank you. Trustee Barnes, I think we're really just at semantics because it's not, I hear what you're saying, that you do not want to adopt in policy anything to do with masks. And that very way, we might end up there, I don't know. But what we need to do tonight, at a minimum, is instruct the President's Cabinet to move forward on developing that policy. Trustee Banducci talked about we have mitigating things in place to deal with it. And first of all, who are we? It's certainly not the board. And what are those things that are in place right now? So we, as an obligation, as the elected officials, have to follow the statute, have to adopt policy. So we have to tonight, in my opinion, move forward. And so I'm going to make a motion that we instruct the President and the President's Cabinet to start the process to develop policy for us on the prevention of spread of infectious disease.
Second.
All right. I have a motion, I have seconds. Do I have questions or comments?
I have comments.
Trustee McKenzie.
I'd just like to read the policy as it's written right now. I'm going to skip down to the later half. The NIC administration may take preventive measures to reduce the risk to the community, including, but not limited to, restricting access to campus resources and/or, this is the pretty important part that we added, requiring adherence to prescribed protocols. So, in conversation, I would say that Trustee Wood's motion is unneeded at this time.
Mr. Chair.
Trustee Banducci?
Trustee Howard, then Trustee Barnes.
Okay.
I guess I want to make sure that we look at all the policy, not just the sentence that was written, because the last paragraph, the last sentence, which was added, says, "Actions taken by the administration in this regard are therefore reviewable by the Board of Trustees." Simply reviewable. There's no guidance. There's nothing telling the board what the measures are, what the procedures are. There is no policy with regard to the review by the Board of Trustees. That's what the statute requires. The statute requires the Board of Trustees to adopt policies to prevent the spread of infectious disease. And I might suggest, it troubles me to hear suggestions that we should ignore the law. That's called anarchy. I am not an advocate of anarchy. I believe in democracy. I believe in the sometimes not really wise legislation is nonetheless something we have to follow until we change it. There are a lot of reasons why people disagree with statutes. You remember that people didn't want to wear seatbelts. There was a lot of resistance to seatbelts and still is. Why is it a law? It's a law because it affects all of our community with regard to the expenses and the implications that go on when we have accidents. There's a lot of laws that require us to do things that we don't want to do. But we have to do those. You have to stop at the stoplight when the light is red. You have to do the other things that are required by the law. You can't just say, I don't like it, so I'm going to ignore it. That is a very frightening prospect to my way of thinking. if this law that requires, it says we must adopt a policy for measures and procedures to prevent the spread of contagious or infectious disease is offensive to us, then go to the legislature and get it changed. But until that happens, you abide by it. Otherwise, we don't have a democracy. We don't have an organized culture. We've got anarchy.
Trustee Barnes.
Yes. I don't suggest anarchy either. I say we do address the statute by finding solutions that don't violate individual freedom and personal responsibility. So I don't want to tear apart your analogy with seatbelts, but suffice it to say there are standards for seatbelts. You can't just use a piece of yarn or whatever. There's standards for that, and as a society, we've accepted that for use on public roads. So there is no standard for a face covering. So again, my position is that I don't want to see us or an individual or a president mandating a medical device against their will. Period. We can find another solution.
Trustee McKenzie.
Chair Banducci, hopefully I can say something and call the question. I was going to say two things. One, I just want to point out that what's the most recent lady who got put on the Supreme Court? Anyone help me with their name?
Coney Barrett.
Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett, yes. When she was using a term in the Supreme Court that the definition was changed in real time, that, and that was new definition was used to smear her, as that's my understanding of what was going on that. And I just find it fascinating that the must terminology is used with such urgency now, when before at the prior meeting, these two individuals who are referring to must said we could wait months even. And so I just definitions of terms is quite important. And also, we just said that it's reviewable to find it in compliance with 2145.
Thank you.
And I call a question.
Question has been called. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Point of information, Chair Banducci.
Yes, Trustee Barnes.
Restate the motion in its entirety, please.
Trustee Woods, would you please restate your motion?
Yes, to instruct the president and president's cabinet to begin the process to develop policy, to be in compliance with state law.
Trustee Wood, let me ask you a question, if I may, with that motion. Had we not, at the last meeting, passed the policy that we did with the understanding that it would be forwarded for continued review and potential adjustment change as we had more time to review it fully and to go through the full process? I had thought we had talked about that at the last meeting. Are you asking for the same thing that we stated at the last meeting?
No, Mr. Chair. What I'm suggesting is what was passed at the last meeting is not in compliance with what's required by state law. So we would ask our president's cabinet and the president to move forward on policy development. That includes the normal course of policy development, all of our constituent groups.
Starting with the existing policy or starting from scratch?
Well, the existing policy doesn't have anything to do with the statute. It doesn't do anything to prevent the spread of contagious disease. So we would have to start with a fresh policy.
Okay.
That is, are we still for discussion?
You called for the question.
You called for the question.
Well, I guess it's.
I wanted clarification on the motion. I want to
Can I
understand.
amend the motion at this point, or is it too late?
No, we've called for the question, which would be a vote on it, but at this time, that's when you would make an amendment.
So it could easily fail and we can make another amendment.
He can amend the motion.
Yeah, you can amend the motion at this time, yes. You can make a motion to,
Well,
you can make a motion to amend.
May I make a motion to amend?
Trustee Barnes.
the way the motion is read now, I am somewhat favorable to, because we do need to address this statute. What I want to be careful about is that we're not empowering, that we don't end up with a policy that empowers someone to violate individuals' personal freedom. That we address the intent to find ways to, what I think should say, minimize the spread of COVID, because it's clear we can't prevent it. But to address the spirit of that statute, may I suggest we amend the motion to state that the resulting policy will not empower an individual or a board to make a mandate on individuals. I don't know if that's the best way to state that or not, but that we address solutions for providing the best educational environment during a pandemic.
Well, Mr. Barnes? Or Chair?
You have to have a second.
Mr. Chairman, if I
I
might,
have an amended motion. I need a second on that amended motion to have discussion.
If it fails, may I make another amended motion? Point of order.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, the amended motion that has not yet been seconded would seem to be a substantive motion, basically that is different than the original motion. So, and I would just tell you from listening to it with my ear, I think it's confusing. So it might be appropriate to have these be two separate motions taken one at a time if they both get a second. That would be my recommendation.
No second yet.
Do I have a second on the amended motion? That would allow for discussion.
Well,
Okay,
then I'll second that motion to allow for discussion.
all right. So I have an amended motion with a second. Just a moment, Trustee Howard. Michael, clarification on your motion, if I may.
Sure, yeah.
Are we, again, are we starting from scratch, or are we taking the existing policy that we have and looking to revise it and improve it?
It's a good question.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, maybe I can help here. The first motion was a motion to instruct the administration to adopt a policy consistent with state law. That's on itself. The amendment to that motion, as I understand it, is to is to change the motion to instruct the administration to adopt a policy to be in compliance with state law, but not to empower the administration to violate individual rights.
And to impose a mandate, if I understood that correctly.
That's my intent.
We need to understand what it is. So the amendment would be a limitation on the original motion to be compliant with state law, but the amendment is, but not violate individual rights by imposing a mandate.
Correct.
Okay.
Trustee Howard.
Yeah. Just in terms of trying to get this right and do it as quickly as we can. If we instruct the administration to come up with a policy that does not violate 33-2145, we will have an opportunity on first and second reading to make amendments.
True, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so let's wait until we see the product that they have. And then when we read it and review it, and when faculty and staff read it and review it, right, they can have in mind your concerns. And if we need to modify whatever is being proposed, we can do it at that time. And it'll be cleaner because we'll know what we're modifying.
Discussion?
With the understanding that the policy will not go into effect until it's eventually approved by the board. So we still have the final authority on that.
I thank you for that clarification. And with that, I think I would support that, and I'll retract my amended.
Okay, so your amendment has been retracted. Thank you. Trustee McKenzie.
So back to discussion. I feel like this is just a clever way to try and get this board to admit that we did something wrong on the 26th. And by saying, I just want to read this part of the policies. The adoption, deletion, or revision of policies and procedures affecting the internal administration of the Board of Trustees and/or its relationship with the Office of the President is not subject to comment by either the Office of the President or the College Senate. The adoption, deletion, and revision of these policies and procedures is reserved exclusively to the Board of Trustees. Now, when I referred that initial policy, I did that out of consideration and my value of all the constituent groups to the parts that would directly affect them, or just out of the my value of the constituent groups. And I would feel like this motion is a clever way to just try and get this board to admit that we did something wrong, which in my opinion, we did everything right on the 26th. And in saying that, I still have a policy that is in development, or I'm looking for feedback from all the constituent groups, part of the Senate and the President. So I feel like this proposal by Trustee Woods is completely redundant.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Wood.
since I made the motion, I'd like to address that. Trustee McKenzie, all I can do is assure you that is not my intent. I'm trying to get the board to comply with state law. That's all it is. However the policy ends up, it'll come back to us, as Trustee Howard said. It'll come back, we'll review it. If we like it, we'll accept it. If we don't, we'll remove the things we don't like, but we need to move forward and comply with state law. That's the only thing I'm suggesting.
If I can read the existing policy, consistent with Idaho State Code Section 332145, the Board of Trustees has the authority to close the college and any of its buildings or campuses, to limit its programs or activities. May I go on? I don't need to go on. And therefore reviewable by the Board of Trustees. So in its own wordings on the policy, it admits that it's consistent.
So, and let me assure you that that policy is already standing. Any policy that comes after that is not going to supersede standing policy. It just doesn't.
You're saying that it would propose something that's, well, I forget the wording that you used, but you implied that this policy is pretty much illegal.
I don't think it meets the intent of the statute that Trustee Howard read to us earlier. I just don't. And I'm truly trying to get the trustees just to meet the requirements of the statute. That's it.
So I don't understand why my proposed, I think it's revision 2, isn't even used as a starting point then.
I don't believe that it has anything to do with the prevention of spread of infectious disease as required by statute. That's why I've asked.
It allows for the requirements, adherence to prescribed protocols to
Well-
prevent the spread of disease.
All right.
Okay, we called for the question.
Hold on.
So it's completely redundant.
Let's stop right there. I don't have a gavel. Guess I'll use my hand here. We're done with the back and forth. All right, Trustee Barnes has withdrawn his amendment. We are back to the original motion put forward by Trustee Wood and seconded by Trustee Howard. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay.
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 The chair votes nay. Motion is defeated, 3-2. Next item on the agenda is tab 3, to initiate the census redistricting.
Mr. Chair, it's a matter of procedure. The request that I made in the action item to respond to Kootenai Health and to rescind the board's decision on the mask requirement, you haven't taken any action on that. You may not want to, but I just, as a matter of process, wanted to make sure you're aware of that.
Duly noted. Mr. Martin.
Chair Banducci, members of the board, it is that time again to redefine the boundaries of the trustee zones. This, as you may be aware, several years ago with the passage of statute 33-2104A, we divided the county into 5 zones. With that, we have to redraw the zones so they are nearly equal in population as practical after the release of the census. The U.S. Census Bureau delivered data to the states to begin redistricting efforts on August the 12th of 2021, and the college has proposed a plan where we would provide the addresses of the existing trustees to a winning firm with the request that they redraw the districts as close to existing as possible and to, if at all feasible, allow each trustee to remain in separate zones. Happy to stand for questions or offer further discussion.
Are there any questions? Trustee Howard.
Chris, the last time we did this, we did it with some internal assets that we have. We have courses that actually teach redistricting, as I understand it. And have they been included in your inquiry?
They have not. Chair Banducci, Trustee Howard, at this time, we chose to seek proposals to do this externally so that we didn't put any pressure on any individuals internally at this time.
Last,
Question?
I have a question.
Hold on. I think Christie had her hand up first.
Thank
Trustee
you,
Wood.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Chris, I understand we need to move forward. I'm glad you're getting this done for us. If you would look down at paragraph 4, I think the intent is kind to try to make sure the trustees remain in our zones. I guess I would just want us to be very careful that we're not trying to jury-rig that in any way. We have to be very careful and be above board on that. If some of us end up where we have to, we're out of our zone, or I just want to make sure that the population bases are correct and we're approaching this with a lot of integrity.
Chair Banducci, if I may. Trustee Wood, absolutely, and that is our intent, is this, because of the way the statute came to be, it hasn't been 10 years since we put the original plan in place, and so we are not anticipating huge changes to the zones at this time, but we did ask in our scope of work, if possible, to try to keep the current zones, if we can, just for the ease of our administration of the election.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Trustee Howard.
Again, the last time we went through this, we had a couple of proposals. And at the time, I was made aware of the fact that there is a statute on gerrymandering that doesn't specifically address community colleges, but it does address other political entities. And there is a prohibition against gerrymandering. And when you say protect existing seats, that's gerrymandering. So I guess I don't want to get into a position where we may come into some criticism that although there may not be a direct statutory violation, there is a violation of an existing statute dealing with general concepts of gerrymandering for other political organizations.
You want to respond to that or just let it go?
It is not our intent to gerrymander at all. Our intent was to try to keep the zones as they exist for, frankly, the administration of the election. But that's why we wanted a third party to do this, so that we were not engaged in the actual development of the proposals.
Chris, I think you're being wise. First off, I think an external solution is best. I think secondly, if you remember, there was one map, then there was a different map, then there was a different map. And quite frankly, whoever wants to define gerrymandering, just go for it. But I could have taken any of 3 maps and they would have been fine, and the zones were completely different. So the fact that we're trying to maintain the integrity is not necessarily any better or worse than any of the other 3 from a stance of how we're moving it around. It was for administrative purposes. So I don't think there's any ill intent there or anyway, I think you're on the right track. The only thing I would ask, I would like to have the ability of the board just to review the proposals that we receive. And I only say that I don't want to necessarily just default to the absolute lowest bidder. So I'd be curious to know if we get 1 or 2 or 3, and then what that looks like. And so I would appreciate if the board had the opportunity to review those proposals that were received.
Chair Banducci, we reached out to 5 local firms who had expertise in GIS. We received 4 proposals back. We have not made a selection at this time, but we do have 4 proposals from local firms.
Would it be possible for us to be privy to that, to those proposals, to see what we received back?
I'm happy to share those with the board.
Okay. Chris, for the timeline, we want to have this done by the November meeting, and on the timeline, if I looked at it, it looked like it was like the 12th of November-ish for the timeline, and our meeting is actually on the 15th of November. So we're within a couple days, so the idea was to have this ready to go by the meeting on November 15th, correct? And so what's our drop dead for them to actually start the process and do the work? How much time do they need to be able to give us that finished product so that it can be presented at the meeting on November 15th?
Chair Banducci, the proposing firms are just waiting on our direction at this time for if they receive the bid. They all had the ability to get this done within the timeframe committed, and we shared that there was some, we were meeting tonight, and we may not receive approval to do this, so it was done on the understanding that we were asking for these bids pending the direction of the board. And I believe we actually have until December the 12th, so we bought ourselves a little bit of time to complete this project.
Okay, that'd be our December meeting. Okay, that's why I wanted to make sure I was clear. So there's a timeliness issue here, but we're not backed up against the wall here.
We are not.
Okay, all right, thank you. And well done to get that out there and get us the bids. Any reason the 5th didn't bid?
I believe it was just they didn't have the capacity and timing on their schedule.
I understand. Sir, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, sir. I would ask if the board would consider the motion and to authorize the administration to initiate this process pending a board review of the proposals.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments for Chris from anybody up here? Trustee Howard.
I think I'd like to make a motion to authorize pursuing the hiring, retention of the appropriate entity to redistrict.
Point of clarification.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a second. Trustee McKenzie.
Authorizing, so who are you authorizing to do that? So I would, if we're in discussion mode, I would just be against that motion, just because I would prefer to see the bids themselves, like as you discussed.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, a clarification. I think the motion is to authorize the administration to move forward to procure these bids for the zoning process, which will be later presented to the board. It's just to authorize the administration to move forward with this process.
Point of order.
Is it, just a moment, please. Chris, with what Mr. Lyons just said, if that was the motion, we would still, as a board, be presented the 4 proposals that were received, and we would still have the ability to review them before final approval and the letting of the contract, correct?
Chair Banducci, per the request that was made, that would be my intent, is to share those proposals.
Okay.
I want to be careful contradicting council, but our need was just to initiate the process. Per the statute, is to initiate this process of redistricting. As part of that, per the conversation tonight, we would share those proposals with the board.
Okay. Chris, one more question for you. For your comfort level, because you're trying to do this, working for the college, Trustee Howard has made a motion. Trustee Wood has seconded it. Are you comfortable with that language with the discussion we've had, or would there an additional part of that after the motion that Trustee Howard made, subject to presentation of the proposals to the board and their final approval or something? Do you want a little bit more on the end of the original motion by Trustee Howard?
Chair Banducci, I'll defer to the board on the wording of the motion. I feel comfortable that I have received direction tonight.
Okay.
I'll just make a friendly motion
Trustee McKenzie.
that they're given the same wording as Trustee Howard, that they're given permission to go gather bids and to present to the board again the bids for information. That's my friendly motion.
For review by the board.
or review by the board.
Review and approval by the board.
Yes.
Okay, so for review and approval by the board, okay. That'd be an addendum to the motion. Do I have a second for the addendum?
Second.
I have a second. Trustee Barnes has seconded. All right. On that note, let's take a vote on the addendum first. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those say nay.
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 Board chair will vote aye. The addendum carries 3-2. Now we need to vote on the original motion
As amended.
as amended. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those
Wait, wait.
opposed?
Point of order, question, just to be clear what we're voting on. Can you state the motion as amended?
Mr. Lyons, would you restate the motion, sir, as you have it recorded, with the amendment?
I will also ask for clarification from Vice President Martin on this. But I understood the motion to be as amended to motion to instruct the administration to move forward with the process for the rezoning and to come up with bids that will be presented to the board. Vice President Martin, is that how you understood it?
That is correct.
So, point of order?
Trustee McKenzie.
You have collected bids already, yes?
We have.
Do you need this board's permission to collect those bids?
We didn't believe we did, sir. We just were looking for permission to initiate this process. So because of the timeline, we went ahead and worked on procuring these services, but that's as far as we've gone. We have not made a decision on those. We just have the bids.
Okay, so
So trustee McKenzie, I would say the motion is probably redundant.
even out of order.
And duplicative, maybe unnecessary. The amendment is probably what's important. They've been authorized to move forward and get the bids, which they just so happen to have already done. And then the second part of that was to then please present those to the board for review and approval by the board and for the subsequent selection of the contractor.
Yeah,
So-
that sounds great.
So
It's getting back to the board.
I think we're there. That's the motion. All right, so we had, on the motion itself, I had an aye, an aye, an aye.
Wait,
Were there any nays?
so I'm gonna,
Was the amendment, pardon me, was the amendment retracted then?
No, the amendment was passed.
Well, I know, but at this point, is it still part of it?
It still is. That's the whole thing. What Mr. Lyons read was the original
Got it.
motion plus the amendment.
Thought there was-
We approved the amendment. Now we're going to approve the base motion.
Okay.
And then that allows for what Mr. Lyons repeated to be good. I have 3 ayes. Do I have any nays?
wait, can I
Or-
take my, I am confused. We are voting on a motion that's half of it's redundant, and the other half is gonna bring the proposals back to the board. So I feel like this is an unneeded motion even, because the chair has asked for these proposals, and it seems like we can, so I'd call a point of privilege that we table this until the next meeting after we've gotten the proposals, basically in line with what this proposal is, because this is unclear at best. So I choose to take my aye back in this voting, so, that, because
Mark, Mr. Chairman.
I'm listening.
I think the important point of this motion is that the board is authorizing the administration to initiate this process. That's the important point of this motion.
well, initiating this process to approve,
At the end of the day, trustee McKenzie, the board will review what are proposed as zone changes, and the board will be able to make a final decision.
I think the passing of the motion and the amendment accomplish what is the desired result. It's a little convoluted, but we get there.
Proposal of the company or proposal of the GIS zones?
Chair Banducci, if I may.
Please, Mr. Marr.
Trustee McKenzie, I think if the statute that was included, line 3 of that statute, a proposal to redefine the boundaries of a trustee zones of a community college district shall be initiated by its Board of Trustees at the first meeting following the report of the decennial census. That's what we're trying to accomplish here tonight, is the official initiation by the board to start the redistricting process.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Again, I have 3 ayes. Do I have any nays? If not, the motion passes and the amendment passes. Mr. Martin, you are hereby authorized to please get us bids. And if you've already done so, you're way ahead of the game. And at your convenience, would you please present those to the board for our review and approval, and we'll try to get a contract let and get this work done.
Thank you, Chair Banducci.
Thank you, sir. And I commend you for being out in front of this. Thank you. All right. Tab 4, while you're up there, sir, I put these right together purposely. If you would give us the update on the conveyance of the Bureau of Land Management corridor.
Chair Banducci, members of the board, this is coming back to you after a request, I actually believe it was in June, regarding some property acquisition. The board made a request that we come back and share some information regarding the BLM property, the conveyance, and what we have done towards moving that conveyance forward. And so I provided some detail in the packet, so you saw the history of that, and hopefully could see kind of the area that we're talking about. But we're talking about the area along Northwest Boulevard that goes from River to Hubbard on the Northwest Boulevard. So there's a portion of land there that's a BLM easement. It was a railroad corridor. Since that time, the BLM has obviously vacated that from a railroad, and it's being used for public purposes. The college worked with the city of Coeur d'Alene on a use agreement for that property, and part of that agreement speaks to a joint effort between the college and the city of Coeur d'Alene to receive that property, if you will, as titled property deeded to the city or deeded to the college. That actually requires truly an act of Congress to accomplish that. And at this time, the college has not moved that forward or worked with the city to get that done since this agreement was signed. And so happy to stand for questions or provide more clarity, but wanted to bring that update to the board.
Chris, I have one question for you. Realizing that the timeline is a bit nebulous, and as you indicated, potentially could take an act of Congress, is the will still there to eventually to deed that property to us, and it's just a matter of the hurdles and the time? Or is that not a fair question?
Chair Banducci, I would share, I don't know the will of the city to do that. I believe they were acting in good faith partners, that was the agreement that they made to do that, but I can't speak on behalf of the city on what maybe the appetite is to fully convey that to the college.
And I just was wondering, because of the time and the hurdles and the, everything else, I'm not trying to throw any shade on the city or anything like that, but sometimes you get to a point where you go, is this really worth all the effort, and do we end up with the kind of the same result at the end, or some co-op or something? So I didn't know if, what their thoughts were, if they indicate anything to you, or if we're just kind of pressing on and just going to keep pursuing it as is and follow the course of action.
Chair Banducci, if I may, I'll share that I have not made this a priority to work with the city to do this. So I think it would be unfair to share maybe the city's intent on this, because we haven't pushed this as a priority internally.
No, thank you for your candor.
Mr. Chair.
Trustee Howard.
I guess I need to remind all of us, myself included, that the reason we got into this arrangement was that the BLM had restrictions on use of that property from the beginning. It could not be used for many purposes. It had to be used basically for recreational purposes or educational purposes. And they would not deal with multiple entities, so we couldn't get a lease agreement, and that's all the city has is a lease agreement on that property. We couldn't get that ourselves. They wanted to deal directly with the city, so we made a side agreement with the city that when this all got resolved, that we would get the land that lies between Northwest Boulevard and NIC property. My concern is, that as time goes by, promises are forgotten. We've had those instances occur in the past. And so I think I raised this issue the last time we had the meeting. I would like to see it move forward because it is just a lease that the city has with the BLM. And the only way to get it deeded over to the city and then for NIC to get it deeded to them is to go ask our congressional representatives to introduce a bill, and it's been done before. And we had actually made some inquiries before, and there was some receptivity to doing that. It was just not followed through on, and so I would like to see us follow through on it and put this to rest so NIC can obtain fee simple title to that strip of land between Northwest Boulevard and the NIC property, and not let it go for 10 or 15 years and everybody forgets about the agreements, and it turns into land that's sold to some developer for condos.
May I ask the president to encourage Mr. Martin, when it fits into the appropriateness of his time and schedule, that maybe he could inquire of the city and see if we can't nudge this along a little bit and see where we're at.
I have a question.
Trustee McKenzie.
VP Martin, sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm of the mind that it may be beneficial to you to receive assistance, as in like a law firm who specializes in land transfers. Would it help to get consultants to negotiate with the city and the NIC and handle the paperwork to help with this process?
Chair Banducci, Trustee McKenzie, I think at this point, what I would be asking for is each of your support in working with our delegation to make this a priority. So we will definitely bring that forward from the college's standpoint, but I think as elected officials, your support of that and your engagement with our delegation would be welcome support.
All right, thank you.
Well,
All right, I think that covers it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is tab 5 action, President's contract. Mark Lyons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an action item that has been tabled previously, and as the current status there is a pending motion to approve the President's contract for another year with the step increases that were given to other employees. That's the pending motion.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay.
nay.
Nay?
Chair votes nay. The motion is defeated 3-2.
Chair Banducci,
Trustee Barnes.
I have a motion to, I'd like to place a motion to immediately execute Section 9.3 of the President's contract to terminate the contract of the President without cause, and that Mark Lyons to execute 9.1 by the end of business day, Thursday, tomorrow, September 23rd.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
I have a second.
Discussion?
Discussion or comments?
Yes. This is a very divisive issue. Obviously, the whole community's watched this issue. It feels incredibly disrespectful to President McClellan. There is no reason not to renew the contract. There's no reason for a motion like this. At the last meeting, I read into the record all the wonderful accomplishments of Dr. McClellan, the last 5 years on this campus, what he's done for this community. Numerous stakeholders in the community have come forward and expressed how appreciative they are of Dr. McClellan. Staff, faculty has made it clear they're the boots on the ground here on this campus, and they find great value in the leadership of Dr. McClellan, as do I. I think that this is a train wreck for the rest of the trustees, that we have personal liability that you're bringing upon us with this motion. It doesn't make any sense at all to remove this president. And I completely disagree. I would ask you to really think about what you're taking on. We don't have to do this. we can move forward, work together, try to form a team. We do not have to do something like this that could be so reckless to this institution in our community.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee Howard.
You know, this is one of those situations where there's an awful lot that I'd like to say, and I know it's useless to say it. But I think some of it has to be said. I see no reasons for this president to be dismissed. Faculty and staff have indicated their support on several occasions now. The NIC Foundation recently, unanimously of those present, voted to support the president. There have been no complaints from community leaders or anyone that I know of connected with the operation of this college that has complained about the operation of this college in terms of its being led by this president. When we're voting on a president, we're voting on somebody who is supposed to be operating this institution and trying to develop the best use of the institution through the assets that we have. And everything that we've heard about this president is that he's done that. We see no reason for us to say we should just dismiss him without cause. The fact that there are personality differences is not a reason to dismiss the president. The president's job is to run this institution, and he doesn't have to run it so that everybody likes him. He has to run it so he's doing a good job. And everything that I've heard, quite frankly, in the remarks that we've been tabulating, I mean, we've had a lot of remarks on this from people. And the remarks, quite frankly, I've got them copied here, run better than 2-to-1 in favor of supporting him. And the ones that are against him don't give any real reasons. There seems to be some kind of a political purpose involved in this attempt or this movement to dismiss him. I find that unsettling. I find it unsettling because NIC should not be about politics. It should be about education. And yet I find this whole process is turning into a political issue over and over and over again. And this president is a casualty of that process. And it is not to the benefit of this organization. This will not end tonight. Once this president is dismissed, and the votes are here to do it, we now have to find another president. And we have to find an interim leader, because you can't find another president instantaneously. In the past, we've involved the community with community consultation, had the community members interview prospective candidates. We've had a national search to try and find the best leadership we can for this organization. All that takes time, and all that is an expensive process. We have in the past hired consultants to help us look for qualified individuals across the country. It is a huge expense, in addition to the fact that now is not really a good time to look for leadership from other institutions, because they just started their commitment in a new school year and they're not going to be ready to back away. We've been told in the past that December and January is the best time to look for qualified candidates in a national search. There's a lot of considerations that are going to have to be addressed just simply because somebody doesn't like somebody, not because somebody hasn't done a good job. I've heard nothing to support any contention that he hasn't done a good job in leading this institution. I am really distressed. It makes me sick to see us going through this kind of controversy. I find this unsettling because I know the effect it is having on the faculty and staff and the institution and the people who love this institution. There is so much discourse, adverse discourse going on, and this dismissal of the president is just the most recent episode of that. I am adamantly opposed to dismissing this president. I think he's done a great job.
All those in favor?
Mr. Chair,
I'd
we still
like to
have
say
discussion. Mr. Chair, you can't silence other trustees. There is continued discussion.
I have a comment.
Well, no, it's not appropriate for you to call.
Why would it be appropriate? This is discussion. There's a motion on the table.
You're not a trustee.
You are the interested party here.
Trustee Banducci, you have bullied me
You know, are you
for
going
a
to do
long
this?
time, and you're doing it again.
Christie?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
you need to accept other comment from trustees. You cannot just cut off the comment of your fellow
You have
elected
spoken.
officials.
You have
No, I'm
spoken.
not done
And Candace,
speaking.
no, you have spoken.
No, I don't just get one turn,
All
Mr.
those in
Chair.
favor of the motion?
You know what? You're going to get us
Please.
sued, Todd. You're absolutely going to get us sued.
I have-
Ooh,
Is this what you like, Todd? Chaos?
Sir, would you have that lady removed, please?
I'm asking you a question. Is this what you like?
I'm asking security, please do your job, sir.
I'm allowed to comment, it's only the board, it's a business meeting, so you have to be quiet.
Night in my ear. You guys have been chatting all night, so.
Well, then you need to stop.
May I make a point of inquiry to our attorney?
I just want to go, since I'm getting kicked out. I think you are the most inept bully, right up there with Trump. And you have ruined a great institution.
Mr. Chair, I had a question of our legal counsel.
Question from Mr. Lyons.
Mr. Lyon? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Mr. Lyon, can you explain our obligation financially to pay off the end of the contract for this president? And then I would like to hear from Chris Martin where we will find the funds for that.
We have called for the vote.
No, your trustees are not done discussing this, Todd. You cannot behave this way. You don't get to silence your fellow elected officials.
Christie,
We heard
you don't get unlimited time.
Point of
Says
inquiry,
who?
please.
Go ahead.
We try to run a meeting in accordance with Robert's rules, although it's not hard and fast, but we need some guidelines. Attorney Mark Lyons, do you have any insight on what is standard for back and forth pro and con with a motion on the floor in order to keep moving forward? We can't have continuous on one side if there's no opposing debate.
Typically, when you have a motion and a second, you have a discussion period among the board members, so they have discussion. The discussion is to be moderated typically by the board chair, giving equal time, generally as a guideline. That would be normal protocol. It has not been, typically has been an issue, but this is, the board chairs, I think, has a responsibility to let everyone comment and make their comments, and then at some point, the question has to be called.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead. Trustee Barnes.
I suggest you give them one more round of comments, and if there's no opposing comments, I would call for the question, sir.
Okay. Only two people that have spoke are Trustee Howard and Trustee Wood.
Well, they feel particularly compelled to need to speak, so I suggest give them another.
Okay.
Well, this is just surreal that you'd even take a vote on whether I could speak. I'm a fellow elected official.
Let's not take a vote.
Mr. Lyon, could you answer the question? What will the cost be to the institution for the removal of this president tonight? And then, Mr. Martin, what funds will that come out of? What, we haven't budgeted anything of the kind for this. So, Mr. Lyon, if you could answer first.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Wood, under the contract with the president, should the board elect to terminate the president's contract without cause, the college agrees to pay the president 12 months of salary and benefits for the remainder of the term of the contract, or either 12 months of salary and benefits or the remainder of the term of the contract, whichever is less. If this happens tonight, it would be 12 months salary and benefits. And the board option, there's an option to have the amounts owed as salary and benefits paid according to the same schedule as previously paid.
And what's that approximate number, Mr. Lyon?
Well, right now, the current president's salary is $222,000 and change for 12 months. Benefits on top of that, and I have not done a calculation of what the benefit effect is.
So the taxpayers tonight will just write a check for over $222,000. Mr. Martin, where would those funds come from?
Chair Banducci,
Mr. Martin.
Trustee Wood, at this time, we have the president's salary budgeted through June 30th of this year. Beyond that, we would seek board approval to use fund balance.
Thank you. So essentially the taxpayers. Thank you.
Seeing no more discussion?
Call the
I still-
question.
I still have a comment if you let me make.
I called the question, unless Ken has something to say.
Okey-doke.
Did you call the question?
If Ken wants to say something, he may, and then I call a question after him.
Thank you.
Mr. Howard.
As I understand the motion is to terminate the president's employment tonight. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So that tomorrow this institution does not have a president, doesn't have an interim, doesn't have any provisions for leading the institution. I would like to propose an amendment that is termination, if it's going to take place, that it take place in 2 months in order to afford the institution an opportunity to timely select an interim and to move forward in terms of finding a substitute. To do it immediately, quite frankly, leaves this institution essentially leaderless. We've got some excellent staff here, and I'm sure we're going to be able to find some interim assistance, whether it's internally or externally. But it should take some time and consideration, and it shouldn't be something that's done so quickly, simply because you want to get rid of them.
All right, I have a motion.
I call the question.
Wait a minute, there's a motion. Great.
Oh,
Um,
does
I-
it have a second?
And I will second that for discussion. So the
I have an
discussion would be.
Amendment and a second.
The discussion would be, Mr. Chair, that I think that's probably the most responsible thing to do, but we have to take into account what Dr. McLennan has been through this last 10 months with this board, and I don't know that he would have the appetite to endure any more of it. Yeah.
Okay, we have a amendment. We have a second to that amendment. Is there any other comment or question on the amendment? All right, we'll take a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, vote aye.
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 All those opposed, vote nay.
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 Chair votes nay. The amendment is defeated, 3-2. Back to the original motion. All those in favor, vote aye.
Wait, point of order, just, the motion is to execute 9.3 with,
We're back to Trustee Barnes' original motion.
I
All those in favor of Trustee Barnes' original motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Chair votes aye. Motion is passed 3-2. We will take a 10-minute recess and reconvene at 8:20.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please take your seats, the chair would like to resume the board meeting momentarily. Please take your seats.
We got to come up with better solutions. Technology.
Family sacrifice, opportunity cost is half.
All right, we are resuming the meeting. We are still under tabs 5, under President's Contract and President's Employment.
Chair Banducci?
Yes.
So clearly, this requires some additional things that we need to be doing. So I have a follow-on motion to appoint Vice President Lita Burns as acting president.
Okay, I have a motion from Trustee Barnes. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion?
I have a second from Trustee McKenzie.
Discussion, Mr. Chair.
Discussion, yes.
Mr. Lyon, is this allowable? It's not on the agenda. It's an action item. Is this, not that I would disagree with Dr. Burns, but is this even allowable?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Wood, the short answer is I don't know. We've taken action on the president's employment. This is really a matter of interpretation for the board. I can't give you a legal ruling on this. Robert's Rules of Order are a guideline here, but you know, I would have to say it's debatable.
And that says generically president's employment. If there's a motion to make her the acting president, that would be employment of a president.
Well,
I believe that falls under the context.
Isn't there a statute about the agenda item specifically, though, that we need to be cautious and follow? Is my original question.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Wood, yes, the law does require that action items be noticed on the agenda. The agenda item here, President's employment, can be interpreted, can be interpreted, I guess. I think it's subject to a broader interpretation. So I'm not, I guess originally I didn't think this was the intent, but again, I have to leave this to the board.
We've not had an opportunity, this is very awkward for Dr. Burns. The board has not had an opportunity to speak with her. She's just been through a very difficult situation. I just don't think it's appropriate tonight. Not that I would disagree, but I think that maybe we should meet again as a board and have this discussion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to appoint Dr. Lita Burns, the Vice President of Instruction, as the acting president, please say aye.
Mr. Chair,
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I would like just some definition.
Yes, sir.
Is her salary going to be increased to presidential salary? What are we going to pay her?
Right, this is just so haphazard.
No, she's just going to take on the mantle on a short-term basis as the acting president.
You can't even do that. HR rules don't allow that, Mr. Chair. I'm just telling you, it's just too haphazard. Why don't we meet again after meeting with our legal counsel?
I have a motion on the floor. I have, all those in favor, please vote aye.
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 All those opposed, please vote nay.
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 Chair will vote aye. We appoint Dr. Lita Burns as the acting president.
I have just a quick question.
No, sir.
Yeah, no, who's the president now?
Sir, you're out of
And when does Dr. Burns' term begin? Because you can't have two college presidents at the same time.
Sir, I believe that the motion regarding you was effective immediately.
No, it wasn't, Todd. No, it wasn't.
No.
Good Lord.
It was immediate. I think Mr. Lyons clarified that.
No, Mr. Chairman, my understanding was that it was as of end of business tomorrow. And I was directed to give the notice that of the board's action by end of business tomorrow, and the action is not effective until notice is delivered under the contract.
So we've executed 9.3. You're going to execute 9.1 by close of business tomorrow. Okay.
Well, you just voted on a motion, Todd, so where are we at?
Might I propose a motion?
Trustee McKenzie, what are you thinking?
I propose that Dr. Lita Burns becomes acting president upon the full execution of what we voted on earlier today.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Discussion?
Do I have a withdrawal of the original motion?
I can modify the motion.
No, you've already voted on one.
Okay, so we're going to withdraw the motion, and it's been, and you're making an amendment to the motion. Am I correct?
Yes, a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I do clarification? If your current motion is to withdraw or override the previous motion and then have a new motion, I think that probably makes more sense.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what I'm suggesting, withdraw and rephrase the motion.
All right, well, the motion is withdrawn. Would you withdraw your motion for the moment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Trustee Barnes, would you like to restate your motion?
The motion is to appoint Lita Burns as acting president upon execution of 9.1 by Attorney Mark Lyons.
All right, do I have a second?
A second.
Discussion, Mr. Chair.
Discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is incredibly disrespectful to Dr. Burns. The board has not talked with her at all. You cannot just tell her she has to be president and have her work out a classification. It really would behoove this board to understand some state and federal employment laws.
Christie, it would be helpful if you knew what you were talking about, but you are inaccurate in what you're stating. You don't know what's occurred, so
What, so
you
you've
know-
done something without the board, Todd? Is that
Wow.
what you're telling me? That you, as chair,
No,
conferred with Dr. Burns and you left the board out of the discussion?
no, that's not what I said at all. You just make a lot of assumptions and you jump to a lot of conclusions, that's all. So, but that's fine.
You know what? You just continually try to cram things through the hard way. Why can't you ever do it legally? Why can't you ever follow policy? It's disrespectful to the entire institution. It's disrespectful to Dr. Burns. You put her in a terrible, awkward position. And you don't even want to pay her any more money.
All right. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Any more comments or questions? All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay.
Wait a minute. I will vote in favor of the motion for her to be the interim, because quite frankly, we have no other choice.
As the acting president, sir.
That's right.
Okay. All right, so let me make sure I'm clear on all those in favor say aye. I have Trustee McKenzie, Trustee Barnes,
Aye.
Trustee Howard. Thank you.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
I don't want any part of your process.
All right. All those opposed say nay. All right, the vote carries. Dr. Lita Burns, we appreciate your service to the college as our new acting president.
Thank you for your trust in me. I appreciate that. I do, however, would respectfully like to talk about the terms and the conditions of this appointment to this in the next 24 hours, in the time period before I actually become the acting president. So I respectfully request that opportunity.
And that would require discussion with the full board, not just the board chair.
Okay. We'll have to consider how we would accomplish that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
you should have thought about all this before you just preemptorily dismissed the president.
Okay, well, we'll come back around to that in a moment, I suspect. All right, anything else under this?
I have a follow-up motion for this.
Trustee Barnes?
I have a motion to authorize a presidential search to be conducted by the NSA Board, led by Chair Banducci and Attorney Lyons, and supported by the NIC administration.
And this is not an action item on the agenda. I would object to that motion.
It's President's employment.
That's not on the agenda.
It says action, President's employment.
No, no way, Todd, no way. You are absolutely going to get challenged every step of the way if you don't start following the law.
It's not a search and employment of a president?
And you think that, Todd, you're just going to go pick the president? You and these two are just going to go start a search on your own?
Hold on,
For
I'd like to
discussion.
let Trustee Barnes finish his motion, please.
I'll repeat. Motion to authorize a presidential search to be conducted by the NIC Board, led by Chair Banducci and Attorney Lyons, and supported by the NIC administration.
I make a second to that, but to enter a discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I appreciate that this item is being called under the President's employment. We have covered the President's position, the termination, and an interim, which I acknowledged was maybe, if I was understood, was kind of a broad interpretation. I think a presidential search, authorizing a presidential search, I'd have to tell you that my opinion is that is not on this agenda. So while I recognize we need to have a presidential search, I would recommend that the board schedule as soon as practical another meeting, a special meeting, so that we can, you can, as a board, discuss the parameters of the search and where you go from here. So that's my interpretation of the agenda and my advice going forward.
I had a motion, I have a second discussion.
I would,
Vice Chair McKenzie.
I think it's wise for this board to enter into executive session, and I would appreciate guidance on how we can convene an executive session, whether it be, can I make that motion now?
You got a motion pending, do you? Do you have a second?
I had a motion pending, I have a second.
Maybe we withdraw that motion?
You could momentarily, we could withdraw that motion for the moment with the understanding you could resubmit it. Would you be willing to do that, Trustee Barnes?
It is our intention to do things in the most proper way possible.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, on the question of executive session, we did have a motion to go into executive session earlier. That motion was not successful. That was noticed for 4 o'clock. We do not have an executive session set up on the agenda for this evening. Again, I recommend a board meeting as soon as feasible.
Maybe due to the emergency status, we have an executive session for tomorrow?
We need 24-hour notice to have a special meeting, and I don't think there's enough time between now and tomorrow to properly post a legal meeting for a special meeting for executive session, or just a special meeting.
8:30, we could start at 8:30, or 9 o'clock.
Tomorrow night?
Yeah.
No.
Is that too late for you?
Oh, hold on down there, please. So Mark, Mr. Lyons, let me just make sure I'm clear. As you're looking at the agenda, we have tab 5 with 2 action items. And under the auspices of President's employment a motion to initiate a search, which is expressly to hire a president, so directly impacts employment of a president.
Well,
You don't see that as an extension of that action item under those words?
well, if you're asking me, can I give you a legal opinion on that? No. But if you're asking me as your counsel, I would say it's a bit of a bridge too far on this agenda. The board is, the board can do what the board does, but my counsel is set up a meeting in the next week or so, within days, so that it can be properly noticed, and then go forward with outlining how you're going to do a presidential search. And you're going to need, in my view, based on experience, you're going to need input from the administration and from the board, so.
No,
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Howard.
I came to this meeting tonight understanding some of the issues that were going to be taking place, even though I disagreed with them. But I didn't understand them because somebody talked to me about it. Nobody talked to me about it. I've had conversations with you, and I've asked you specifically what we were going to do in executive session, and you didn't explain it to me. The first I knew about these motions was at the close of the regular meeting, or the last, before the break. I am not prepared, quite frankly, to address the very serious issues that we are going to be addressing with regard to not just interim, but presidential search and how that search is going to take place. I'm not prepared to do that tonight. And if you insist upon going forward with it, I'm going to object. It's not on the agenda. It's not an action item, and I am not prepared and was not given warning of it.
Well, that's, you know what, Trustee Howard, I'm going to turn that right back on you, because I'm going to, for the record, say that for the third time, we did not go into executive session, and once again, you and Trustee Wood voted no to disallow us to go into executive session. Now, had we had the opportunity to go into executive session in either one of the last three meetings, and certainly in today's meeting at 4 o'clock, I bet we'd have had some of these discussions, and we'd had conversation, and we might have developed a plan that could be executed. But because of your obstinance to meet, and Trustee Wood also, you guys chose not to communicate, you chose not to meet, you chose not to have an executive session. You have tried to force conversations outside of executive session that are inappropriate and should not occur. And I will not be baited and drawn into that. There's appropriate business to be conducted in executive session. And if you guys won't go into executive session, we cannot conduct the business of the college appropriately.
Chair Banducci.
So I will not take the blame for that.
We don't let you
It's
hide
my turn,
behind-
Christie.
He hasn't
How about we all
recognized
wait turn?
He hasn't recognized.
Nor you.
Well, then what do you think you're doing?
Telling you that you're not
Mr.
recognized.
Chair,
Trustee McKenzie.
The meeting from this morning, for 4 AM this is still the same meeting, and it's still been noticed to go into executive session. We only recessed. It is not, so it is still noticed to go into executive session.
well, I would
I
just
object
listen
to an
legal
executive session,
counsel.
and it's not going to happen, for the same reasons that I objected before. I've asked you time and time again to explain to me why we need an executive session so I know what to prepare for, and you have not told me. This secrecy, this lack of communication, has got to stop. If we're going to act as a functional board, it's got to stop.
So hold on. I appreciate that, but the thing that needs to stop is that when things are talked in executive session or in confidence, that they don't get out in the media and get spread around and end up everywhere. See, the problem is there is a lack of trust, and it's a concern because conversations are happening and then we're reading about them. And
Oh, well,
so
some things on executive session.
how much
happen.
transparency do you want? It feels like, again, it's a trap or a setup.
I make the
We're in
motion that we
executive
go
session
into
still time.
executive session and I call for the vote.
It's against the legal counsel.
It's still the same
At
meeting.
what point are you guys going to quit putting us at risk?
It's still the same meeting.
Our
It's been
Would
noticed.
you two please stop for just a moment? Please. Please. Mr. Lyons. Is there, it doesn't matter really. If we need 4 votes to go into executive session, and unless we have the 4 votes, it's probably a moot point to see if we have a way to go into executive session at this time. But for the record, I'm going to ask the question, is there any way, because we had it noticed earlier and it was, we recessed to the open session from executive session. Did I understand you say that we could not go back into an executive session?
I said that a motion to go into executive session on a particular topic was scheduled for 4. That motion failed. We do not have another motion for executive session on other issues scheduled for this agenda. So technically, I think we would be out of line to go into executive session on something that would fit regarding a presidential search.
I would like to make a motion, please, to retract my motion and replace it with another one.
Trustee Barnes.
In light of this, I move that we immediately schedule a follow-up meeting, and the agenda would be my remaining motions, which I thought were appropriate for this time, but we want to get everybody on board and make sure we're doing things appropriately. How soon? So the motion is that we adjourn and have an immediately scheduled meeting with these agenda items that I have.
Trustee Barnes,
Sir?
may I make a request?
Yes.
That you hold that motion for just a moment, if you're going to make that motion, set up the meeting, and then adjourn, because I think there's an issue that has popped up that we have to decide how we're going to address. That's regarding Dr. Burns. She's asked that she be able to communicate with us by end of day tomorrow. And I'm trying to think about what that looks like.
Can we authorize the acting president to resume a similar contract of the Dr. McLennan in regards to pay and salary for the duration of the acting period? And that,
I should think,
I think she would like to have part of this discussion and not just be told what to do.
well, naturally, authorize up to, and have the conversation with legal and Dr. Leader Burns.
Who's going to have that conversation? It should be the full board.
Well, the full bullet is authorizing.
No, the full board hasn't even had a sit-down discussion with her. It's just, we cannot talk with her before tomorrow. You're just going to have to accept that. Trustee Barnes had a good motion. We'll get a meeting together as fast as we can.
Dr. Burns. I think the timeline to try to do this with you by close of business tomorrow might not be achievable. Would you be willing to accept the title as acting president until such time as we can set up the next meeting, and then we can include you as part of that meeting?
Chair Banducci, I have to fully admit that I was really not prepared to answer questions like this evening. And it is a bit unnerving for me to have to do that. So however, let me say this, that as you know, I am a very dedicated employee to North Idaho College. And if at some time tomorrow afternoon we will not have a president, I am willing to serve as acting president. I would request that there be due haste in setting up this meeting where I would be a part of a discussion about the term of an acting president and would be involved in how the presidential search would be set up and whether or not we would have an interim president during the time that would expire between the acting president's period of service and a time that we would actually be able to go through a presidential search and get presidential search named by the board for the future of North Idaho College. I am serving under my 4th president at North Idaho College in 20 years. So I have witnessed the process for presidential searches. I will attest to the fact that if you want a really good president, this is not something that can be rushed. This is something that has to be done very thoughtfully and carefully, with certainly under the guidance of our Board of Trustees, but also with the input of not only our North Idaho College community, that is faculty and staff, but also with the community involvement, because our president is a president of a community college and has to be well accepted and integrated into our community in order for us to continue to be successful. So I don't know whether whether you understand what my response was to the question, but yes, I am willing to serve as acting president as long as a meeting is set up with due haste to be able to have a discussion about these other items.
I'll recap what I believe I heard. You will accept the mantle of authority with the understanding that we will try to put the meeting together as soon as possible, and you will engage with us to discuss this and the future process of selecting the new president. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Trustee Barnes, with the motion that you're proposing, when would you suggest for this meeting?
I don't think that I have a motion at this point.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add some clarification to this. If you're trying to schedule a meeting as quickly as you can, I would recommend that maybe you have Shannon Goodrich reach out to you through email just to get schedules with proposed dates as soon as possible, and that all of the trustees give that their immediate attention and make themselves available as soon as we can to meet Vice President Burns's desired schedule.
For posting requirements, sir, we could go as quickly as Friday, correct?
It's a special meeting, you need 24 hours notice, so yes, that would be, Friday would be the earliest I would think you could have a meeting.
Okay. I would say we target for Friday, if at all possible.
Friday morning.
Okay. Okay. Do we? Trustee Barnes, the motion you're making, I'll suggest that you target us towards Friday potentially?
I don't think this really requires a motion, does it?
No. Mr. Chairman, this doesn't require a motion. I would recommend not trying to make a motion because we don't know everybody's schedule yet, and we still, and Shannon can reach out to you and find out what time on Friday might work, and maybe get dates for Monday or Tuesday, something along those lines. But I don't think a motion is required here. As soon as we get dates that trustees can consent to, then we can move forward and schedule the meeting.
Well, hopefully we can do it Friday or Monday to try to do it as soon as possible. Okay?
Does anyone on this board have an objection to Friday? I don't understand why we can't. This is quite important.
Nobody's objecting, Greg, but the
Be great.
attorney suggested we have our clerk, which normally scheduled this, reach out to the trustees.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just as a matter of scheduling, I have a deposition scheduled Friday morning until about probably 11.
Okay.
So if that factors in.
So Friday, for your availability, sir, after lunch sometime?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. think that's all there is on that topic at this time,
Do,
unless there's any other,
is,
anything else?
is it voted on that Dr. Lita Burns is acting president until we meet on Friday?
That was done.
That was done. Thank you.
All right, next is the board chair.
But, I have one more motion I'd like to make.
Trustee McKenzie.
With the new president situation we found ourselves in, I think it also wise that we initiate a hiring freeze.
That's not on the agenda. What are you doing?
Is that?
Yeah, I don't think we
Is
can,
that-
I
okay.
don't think we can do that.
Okay.
That's not on the agenda. All right. All right. Next is board chair report. I've spoken enough tonight. I'm not going to make a report. Last thing on the agenda is remarks for the good of the order. If he has anything positive they'd like to say?
Well, it's not positive, because I think this whole process is a shambles. I think that it was not communicated well between all the trustees, so we knew what to expect. I think that it was not well thought out in terms of the process, so that this college could move forward. Even if we wanted to get rid of the president, we should have done it in an orderly way. I'm just absolutely, totally disgusted with this board.
Mr. Chair, I too have a comment under good of the order.
Yes, trustee Wood.
I certainly share the sentiments of trustee Howard, and I will go a step further. I have been very vocal, very open about the fact I feel this is retaliation toward this president for filing a personnel complaint against trustee Banducci. Very well-founded personnel complaint that this board has yet to even investigate. I was the one who came forward. I took it and said, this is outrageous behavior. We need to remove this board chair. Because I came forward, they can't do anything to a fellow elected official. They can't do a thing, right? But they can go after the president because he complained. And he complained because he wanted to support his staff and the students and the administration. He's done nothing wrong here. This is 100% retaliation against a really excellent president. And I do believe these Board of Trustees here, they have just really caused themselves a lot of liability. So we'll see how that washes out.
Well, if there are no more comments, we will declare this meeting adjourned.